Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast on this 4th of November, 2020. I'm your host, Cyril Gerald-Quinn, normally discussing the world of sports and pop culture, but there was, a thing called a election that has not yet been completed, that took place last night that is yet to be completed, that is kind of taken everybody's attention as well as mine, that we're going to talk about. I will eventually we'll get to some sports and pop culture, I promise. I know that the election has been shoved down your throats for the last 24 hours, really for the last, few months. So I promise you, I will get to some sports and pop culture. Have a little levity in as we continue to hopefully get a president soon enough, and hopefully kind of make sense of what we've seen in the past 24 hours. As it stands right now, Biden is at 253 and Trump is at 213 as far as electoral votes. It seems that Biden is in the proverbial driver's seat. He's leading. He's already won Michigan and Wisconsin. He is, we're still waiting for Arizona, waiting for Nevada, waiting for North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, and also Alaska. But Biden right now is in excellent position to be the 46th president of the United States. He's probably he's going to win Nevada, and he has a chance, right? The way it's looking right now, he's really going to he has a chance to win Pennsylvania, to be honest with you. He has made up a ton of ground in Pennsylvania over the course of the last, 10 hours or so. Over the course of the day. So he is in prime position to be the next president of the United States. Watching this last night, and it was just a reminder. And a lot of people were on edge. A lot of people were nervous, anxious, stressed. And I'm watching this last night, I'm thinking to myself, how did we get to this point to where we have these two choices? And to where we are voting, a lot of people that voted for Biden are voting for Biden because they want Trump out, not because they believe Joe Biden is a great option, but they want Trump out of office. So a lot of, and to be honest with you, this is going to go down regardless of what happens in the final numbers. This is going to be a close election. Like, I can strongly make the case that, if it wasn't for the pandemic, Trump probably wins this election, to be honest with you. Probably wins it going away, if not for the pandemic. But the pandemic happens. That's, real life. You can't, those things happen in real life. It's part of being the president in terms of dealing with it, being able to deal with that type of national disaster. But it just had me thinking about, how do we get to this point of, where, you look at 2008, 2012, and I voted for Obama in both elections, and it was like, this guy, you voted for Obama because you liked Obama. You voted for Obama because you felt like he was going to do something. You felt like he was going to have your best interests at heart. I'm assuming if you voted for Obama. Some of you may not have voted for Obama, but a lot of people did because he won back-to-back elections. To go into an election and vote for somebody because of the other opponent is one of the emptiest feelings that you will ever have in regards to as a voter. I mean, it is a dreadful feeling to have. And I've been voting for the better part of 20 years. My first election, the first election I voted for was 2000. With Bush and Gore. So it's not that. I mean, it is not a feeling that you want that you. It got me thinking like, what needs to be done, what needs to happen moving forward that I don't have this feeling again in regards to the candidates. Like what needs to happen. So I don't ever want to have a feeling. I want, 2024, 2024, 2022, I don't want to have this feeling anymore. And it seems like we are a long ways away from not having that feeling. The bottom line is you have a system, a political system that is completely broken. You can say what you want about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, the ideal of Donald Trump will live on, win or lose. He almost won this election, running on hate speech, running on bungling a national disaster in terms of pandemic. Because he almost won this election. And you look at some of the numbers, his numbers, he gets the, Latino vote, which was evident by what transpired in Florida. And his, in terms of the African-American male vote, he got 20% of that vote. Last election, Hillary got 82%. This year, Biden got 80%. To give you a sense of that in comparisons to the years Obama ran. Obama, when he won both his elections in 2008 and 2012, he got 95 and 96% of the African American of the black vote, the black male vote, I should say. So we're going in the wrong direction from that standpoint. And you can sit up here, you can knock black men if you want. The bottom line is, black men feel as though, hey, if I don't think Joe Biden is a viable option, if we don't have a viable option outside of Trump, then I'm gonna vote for my pocketbook. I'm gonna vote for take care of my pockets. And you look at what Trump has created. He's created a sense of, facts don't matter. Facts don't matter in this era when it comes to politics. People aren't going to get their information off, not going there to Washington Post or the Atlantic or the New York Times. They're going to Twitter, Facebook, they're going to Instagram. That's the world we live in right now. And again, even though you're going to have a president, even though more than likely we're going to have a new president, the shadows of Donald Trump loom large moving forward. Like he may have lost the battle as far as this election, but he's winning the war. MAGA is not going anywhere. Proud Boys, all these groups, all these white supremacist groups are not going anywhere. They're not anytime soon. And if the Democrats don't get their shit together, then we will be in the same situation 4 years from now. We're looking at another mini Donald Trump. And again, the scary thing is, the playbook has been written in regards to how you can win an election. You galvanize a base. You appeal to their pockets and go from there. It doesn't matter. Again, people don't care about races and about bigotry. They just don't care. They just don't care. Character is not a big deal. These things are just not a big deal anymore. They're not. They're just not. People are not going to vote for you because you're a good guy. That's just those days are done. And I think, as the one thing that I'm encouraged by is hopefully a generation coming behind us, the millennials as well as this Generation Z, can see what happened, transpire with this election, and can really have their presence felt in a way to where they demand a new system, because this system this system needs to be destroyed. This political system that we have right now is just needs to be completely destroyed, especially if you're African American. It has not worked for us as African Americans, not at all, not at all. And again, I I would not be celebrating if Donald Trump indeed does go down, which it looks like he's going to. Don't celebrate. You should not be celebrating at all. You should be relieved, but you shouldn't. Listen, you should not be celebrating, because the real work has yet to be. I mean, this is just the beginning. Now the real work will begin. And your job as a voter, as a American citizen, is to hold, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, to their feet to the fire. Hold them accountable from the day that Joe Biden is sworn in. You hold his ass to the feet to the fire. You demand of both parties better candidates. Because forget about Donald Trump getting elected in 2016. Donald Trump shouldn't even been nominated. Shouldn't even been up for nomination by the Republican Party, which speaks to their level of candidates. And really, neither side, like neither party, and I've been a registered independent for over a decade. Neither party has quality candidates right now. There's not a lot. It's not a lot to choose from right now. Politicians have gotten fat and lazy, and I don't mean literally fat, figuratively fat and lazy, because we as a society are not as involved as we should be. We don't hold them to the level of accountability that we should. If the last 4 years and this election doesn't change that, I don't know what will, to be honest with you. I frankly don't know what will. So it seems like, again, as it stands now, I think, excuse me, I think Pennsylvania is going to take a couple of days to be called. Probably, I would guess tomorrow, probably tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, Pennsylvania probably will be done. North Carolina, Arizona, I think North Carolina, Arizona, Georgia probably will be called by the night, more than likely, by tonight. Nevada probably some of these, most of these states, I think all the states with the exception of Pennsylvania will be called by tonight, if I had to guess. If I had to guess. But again, this is, none of this should surprise you in regards to how this election went. The polls mean nothing. If we haven't learned that, if we didn't learn from 2016, this election has shown us that the polls mean absolutely nothing. And one of the things that I was fearful of in regards to a way that Trump could win would be his silent majority coming out and voting, and they came out and voted. Like the Trump base is real. It is absolutely real. Without question, it is real. And they came out in droves and nearly won this election. Nearly won this election. And you listen, you can say what you want about Donald Trump. I don't fuck with Trump at all, but there's something that he galvanizes people. It goes to me. It goes beyond just him being a racist. It goes beyond to him appealing to people's pocketbooks. It is something that people, like or love about Donald Trump. Because when you look at policies, when you look at his his leadership, we know he's some shit. We know that. We understand that. But again, he's created a sense of facts don't matter. Facts don't matter. I can say what I want. I can try to break every law. It does not matter. How many when you think about it, when you really think about it, this race probably shouldn't even been close. He was right there in this race, despite all the scandals, despite how he's handled COVID, despite everything, despite the last 4 years. And he was right there. Right there. This race was right there to be taken. And again, if that is not a wake-up call, then I don't know what is. I don't know what is if that's not a wake-up call. So it's one thing, going out again. People voted in record numbers. People voted. Joe Biden is going to break the record for most votes. For most votes with over. He's going to top, if he hasn't already, he's going to top 70 million. The previous record was held by Barack Obama in 2008, where he had 69 million. So he's breaking that. Biden's going to break that. So people came out to vote. 4 years ago, it was 4 million people stayed home. 4 million. There were 4 million people less Democrats that voted in 2016 as compared to 2012. That was not the case in 2020. People came out in droves and voted. You had well over 100 million in terms of early voting and mail-in ballots. And when it comes out, those total numbers probably going to come out you're probably going to see like well over 100 and Biden's at 70 million. So I'm looking at Biden's at 70, Trump's at 67 million. Probably that's 133 million people voted. 133 million, and it's probably going to top. Has a chance to top 140 million total when all the ballots are counted. So we have a long way to go. The work is just beginning. We're about to have a special guest on the program to discuss this election. I had to bring somebody on, and I thought about him when this election took place, and last night. Angel Rodriguez is on the program now. Angel.
Hey, how are you, Mr. Quinn?
Enriquez. I'm sorry, I messed up your last name. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing well, like the whole nation right now. I'm nervous, clutching, There's an important election tonight, They called the local election. Unfortunately, my candidate, Marcus Batchelor, didn't win, but he put up a good fight, and he put his name out there, which I was happy and honored to be part of his campaign. So so far, like I said before, I'm kind of nervous for tonight, and we'll see what happens, how it unfolds.
Yeah, I think I think was, I mean, I think this is going to play out the way we kind of expected to play out with um, once those mail-in ballots are counted, that was going to be a major advantage for Biden. Biden's going to probably, get to 270, and then you're going to have Trump, you know, bitching and moaning and threatening lawyers and all that nonsense, recounts. But eventually, um, Biden and Harris will be in the White House. I'm glad that you mentioned your candidate to begin with, because to me, that is where the work has to be done as far as on a local level. People get caught up in the presidential. It's the more sexier of when it comes to elections and things of that nature. But if you want to make real change, it has to be at a local level. What are your thoughts on that before we get to the presidential race? What are your thoughts on elections on a local level, and
Yeah,
even going down to like superintendents of school boards, things of that nature?
I totally agree with you on that. Local elections, also matter as presidential elections. People don't realize that local stuff affects our day-to-day lives. You know, council members are the people. Well, speaking from DC, council members are the people that raise your taxes. If you're middle class or poor, or they um, create affordable housing or raise your rent as well. So people um, really don't, not say care about the local level, but they don't pay attention to it as you know they would as at a presidential year. And that's one of the most frustrating things for me, is that people don't pay attention on the local stuff. And yeah, we want to get Trump out of office. That's the first part of the battle. The second part of the battle is taking those local elected officials who's been there 25, 8 years, who hasn't done any change for the city or any change for people, um, to vote them out and put in progressive candidates. And that's why I volunteered for the Marcus Bachelor campaign, because he was a young progressive candidate that was going to, change DC and be able to, work for, all people and make DC work for all people. So, local stuff is so important, and I love doing the local stuff. If this election was, a normal election like we usually see with a normal Republican and and a Democrat, I think I would not have cared about the national level. I would have just cared about the local level, and that's it. But, we're in a situation where our democracy will either die or our democracy will be saved. So, yeah.
Yes, no question about it.
Mm.
I'm thinking, I went, I came on the program before you joined me, talking about just as how empty I felt as a voter last night, because, and I voted for Biden Harris, but it wasn't so much about voting for them as much as it was voting against Donald Trump. And I think that really resonated around the country, that a lot of people were like, oh, it's voting for the lesser of the two evils, not about what you expect out of one candidate, but what you just detest out of another. And that's not a position you want to be in as a voter. I know a lot. I mean, I've talked to people who have either not voted or did write-in votes in past elections who had that type of feeling. So
Mm.
I've seen that go. A lot of people sat out the the last 2016 election because they didn't like Hillary
Mm.
or Donald Trump. How do we get to a
Mm.
point where we hold these parties, feet to the fire, and force them to give us better options as voters? because I feel like the options have not been, just haven't been good, for a while now.
We need somebody like a Barack Obama-esque to come back, because we knew how when Barack Obama entered the 2008 campaign, it was like a fresh of air for voters, in that election, Biden ran, Hillary ran, and Edwards ran. And two of the candidates there, Biden and Hillary, were already in the political scope, and, they were in the Senate, and Obama, he was a senator at that time, but, he was a young upstart senator. And people could relate more to Obama because Obama, went through the struggles, and he understands the working people. So having somebody who is like Obama run for president sometime in the next 4 years would be great, because it would rejuvenate the way, as a voter, you'll be able to, as a voter, to be able to have, the option to say, hey, I'm not picking the lesser two evils. I'm more confident in this candidate because his policies and, his characteristics. And, I agree with you. Like, I do not side with any party anymore. I'm an independent now because I'm so disappointed of what the Democratic Party has given us in the past 2 years, in the past two presidential elections. Because, 2016, we could have gone with Bernie. Bernie had, that energy and those, policies, but because the Democratic establishment did not mess with Bernie's policies, they went with the safer pick, in their opinion, which was Hillary, and they failed. 4 years later, we have a long list of Democratic candidates, and my pick was Julian Castro to go. He was a great candidate, in my opinion, great progressive policies, but he didn't advance. And soon, after weeks and weeks and weeks, everybody left, and it was only Bernie and Biden. And once again, the Democratic establishment said, nope, we're not going to let Bernie, accept our nomination. And, we're in this situation again with the lesser of the two evils. But hopefully that changes in the next 4 years. And I think, AOC will be the person that will rejuvenate people to come out and vote and be confident in their candidate, because she has that energy and she has that, willing to, continue to fight for people. And in her presidential campaign, hopefully in 2024, she'll be able to bring a lot of people to the polls out. And it's going to be an exciting time when 2024 comes around, because if Biden wins, I see somebody running against him for the Democratic ticket.
Yeah, I mean, no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have somebody coming after him, especially play the age card, because by that time he'll be well over 80. I was thinking about you bring up a couple of names, Barack and Bernie Sanders. I thought with Barack, I kind of saw him as like this generational talent, as far as, and I really think that he covered a lot of holes that were within the Democratic Party, because he was just that gifted of a politician, whether you agree or disagree with his policies or his his 2 terms. He got things done. But I still think that it doesn't speak to the overall foundation of either party, of either party having a solid foundation. I just think you had a super talented guy who kind of like made us forget about the rest of the party because he was that good. I would compare it to, I give you this sports analogy, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Like LeBron came to the Lakers and he erased almost all the last decade of futility as far as not making the playoffs. He comes in, he brings in AD, brings in a number of other players. He brought credibility. He brought just a winning culture by himself to the Lakers, right? That one guy. You have somebody like the Spurs back in the day. They had a culture where it wasn't just one guy. Tim Duncan gets older, Tony Parker steps up. Tony Parker gets older, Kawhi Leonard steps up. It's like a culture that you have that brings along talent to where you're not depending on a singular a singular person that kind of takes, LeBron kind of covered up a lot of holes when he was with Cleveland. Those teams that weren't very good in 2018, particularly when they went to the finals on a team that was just horrible besides him, that was on average besides him. So that would be my concern with these parties, not only the Democrats but just both political parties in general. That there's not a foundation, that there's not a development of talented candidates that seems to be coming up the pike. Now, you mentioned AOC. I like AOC, but I don't see a lot beyond that, and I don't see what the Republicans have coming for 2024. I mean, it's not out of the possibility, if he's not in jail, that Trump can run again. Like, don't eliminate that possibility.
Yeah, and you can't eliminate the possibility of his kids running too, because I'm predicting that if Trump loses, Don Jr. might run in the next 4 years. And if you guys don't know, his family were his advisors behind the scenes. I think his daughter is an advisor. Don Jr. Kind of advises him on the side as well. I think he's in charge with the businesses and stuff, but I think he will. This is my prediction because I see how egotistic this family has become. They always has been. That because hopefully they lose this election, they're going to be like ramping their base up because unfortunately the MAGA base will continue to be a thing because of the impact that this racist, xenophobic, everything in the book, man, has created. But this was already, not saying not creative, but, there was these people who were hiding behind the bushes that came out the bushes are now more comfortable of saying all these things or, are going to follow, wherever the Trumps go. So if that makes any sense. So MAGA and Trumpism isn't going anywhere. This is like, Reagan, the Reagan era and the people who voted for Reagan, So like you said, I hope that the Democratic Party runs on the foundation and inspires more young people with progressive ideas and, bold leadership to step up to the plate. Because we're not seeing that, and we haven't seen that in the past 2 elections. And if we continue to, stay like this, who knows? We can have another Trump run against a candidate, and that candidate may be weak and we'll be in the same situation. So we have a couple of years to build, a couple of years to, groom those candidates. So when it comes to that time to, fight, we're confident that that candidate is going to be able to win and be able to, fight, for the American people and, bring justice and, bring peace to this country that has only seen a lot of hatred and a lot of, not a lot of, unity between each other. And, it's sad. You've seen it in sports, you have white nationalists and white people, mad about, the NBA putting Black Lives Matter on their courts, encouraging others to vote and, putting, names on the back of the jerseys. It's like, come on, man, it's human rights issues we're talking about. This is not politics, human rights issues. But because of the times being divided, that's how those white nationalists react, and they think it's all politics. But they need to understand that the issues that are being brought up are human rights issues.
Let me ask you this: you're in your early
Hmm.
20s. Um,
Hmm.
you're out there, like you're on the street per se. Like you're out there in the trenches amongst people your age and younger. Do you get a sense that your group has had enough of how politics is run, it has been ran over the past however many years, and are they just ready? Are they ready for? And I mentioned the system needs to be torn down. So it's not just a matter of putting in, voting, Trump out and Biden in. It's an entire system. Are they ready to tear down this system and possibly put in somebody to tear down this system that's run rampant over the course of the last 100 years or so? Are they ready for just a brand new political system? I'm not saying elect Kanye West either. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just from a standpoint of just a new, a outside the box where. And I was talking to somebody this weekend, a family member this weekend on. For me, I need my president to have political acumen, to have some type of political experience through either the military
Hmm.
or through Congress, something like that. But in
Yeah.
terms of cabinet, I wouldn't mind if his cabinet, wasn't in politics at all. I want diverse, not only in terms of skin color, but diverse in terms of thinking. Where you think
Hmm.
in terms
Where do I think? Can you repeat that question? I think you cut off.
of that? I asked you two separate questions. I said where.
Uh-huh.
First part was where is your generation has your generation had enough of this political system that we're currently under, in regards to who's in office? Have they just had enough? Are they just fed up with the system to where they are ready to really make an impact through creating maybe a political party or creating or in terms of how they vote?
Yeah, I think my generation, as you see it, they're having enough about all this stuff that's happening. This old system, and you see, young people take the streets and protest. You saw it this summer with the Black Lives Matter protests over the summer. You saw young people step up to the plate. They were like, this needs to stop. This needs to not continue. Innocent Black Americans are getting killed while you have a white guy, you know, shooting at protesters, and what does he get? What treatment does he get? He gets a treatment of saying, "Oh, he's just a kid." And my generation is saying that's not okay. You know, we're gonna step up for anybody that's facing injustice. So my generation, I think, in the next decade is gonna change a lot of things that a lot of politicians didn't want to change because they wanted this system to continue to be the same system that has been in this country for a long time. So yeah, I see a lot of my generation. I see a lot of my generations running for office too, which I see more progressives in Congress after this decade. I feel like, and more people like AOC and more people, you know, running around Congress, making change and being unapologetic about their, views and about, their stance. And it's going to be a great, great future, you know. And I see that the future will be bright in the next few years, in the next decade that comes along because, young people are really stepping up to the plate. This generation, even though they want to count us down and call us dumb and not smart, but you could see the statistic now. Young people came out to vote this year, something that hasn't been seen for a long time. And that's because social media is that powerful, and young people know how to get people out to the polls, and you know, this is going to be a bright future. and I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait to be a part of that bright future. And one of my dreams is to become a DC council member in DC, and do some changes here in the city, and be able to bring progressive change, and be able to have my kids and other kids around the city grow up with equitable city where they have a right to have a good education, and a right to have good health care, and a right to be able to walk the streets with no violence, and no poverty.
Listen, you're well on your way. No question about that. Yeah, I just wonder, like 10 years from now, if someone comes along like a Bernie Sanders with those type of ideas, that your generation will have changed the landscape to where the Democrats have no choice but to support that type of candidate, because it's going to take that dramatic shift in mindset to rid ourselves of our current system. Like to your point earlier, one of the reasons why Bernie Sanders didn't get voted in, or wasn't supported by the Democrats. Well, two reasons. One, Democrats thought that Biden would have a better chance to defeat Trump than Bernie would. But also, to your point earlier, the fear of that drastic of going against the grain. Like they were not willing to go that far against the grain. And to me, you can say what you want about Bernie Sanders. I personally, respect Bernie Sanders, and I agree with some of his policies, not all of them, but with many of some of his policies. And it's that type of change that's going to be needed to kind of rid ourselves of this system that we've been stuck in for, decades upon decades.
Um, um, I feel like there's going to be a lot more young people being a part of the DNC, which the DNC is the people who decide, they decide, the nomination. Of course, we vote out, we go and vote for the nomination, but they decide, a lot of the things and the pathways of the Democratic Party and their platforms and stuff like that. So I feel like young people right now, maybe 20, 24, or 25, they will be probably 30, or in their mid 30s in the next decade. So they'll have enough experience and enough, things to be able to, apply for a position at the DNC, or get elected for a position at the DNC. For me, it's all about, you have to get into the system so you can change it. That's why I want to. I give you the example of me going to the DC Council. If I want to change stuff, I got to be in the system so I can make progressive change. And that's what many of the people who are progressives now are doing. And are doing in Congress right now. Like AOC, she's a Democratic Socialist, but she's a Democratic Socialist under the Democratic Party. Like many other Democratic Socialists, they're under the Democratic branch, because they know that if they run under the Democratic Party and get elected, they can change the system in the inside. So I feel like a lot of young people and a lot of progressives are gonna try to attack this system from the inside, and we will see a Bernie Sanders-esque candidate soon who will have success and no barriers to be elected as the nominee and hopefully president someday. So I truly believe that's coming soon.
Yeah, I mean that's the type of change that the system needs. The system needs to be, it needs to be torn down and destroyed. I mean, it's kind of like the system we've dealt with in terms of systematic oppression and racism of that nature. Like the system has been created to keep minorities down, and I think the political system is not any different, to be honest with you. Like we got in terms of, we got to keep it real from that standpoint. So it's going to take. Listen, it's nothing happens overnight, as we all know. but I do, I'm in education, and I do see more younger. I see younger people getting involved as far as just understanding what politics is, and what, and just having more involvement in politics maybe now than, say, 5, 10 years ago. So that's definitely encouraging, because it's going to be up to, I'm telling you right now, you know it's going to be up to your generation and the generation following you. So your generation, you're a millennial. The generation following you, I say, think it's Generation Z. You guys are going to be just major factors moving forward in terms of the future of this country. There's no two ways about it. And it'll
And
be
we're a major voting bloc.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. No question. Absolutely. Absolutely. One last
Yeah.
one last question before I let you go here.
Mhm.
So we saw in Miami-Dade County in Florida, and it was one of the biggest reasons why Trump won Florida. He got there was an uptick in uh, in the Cuban Latino vote with
Mhm.
that was for Trump. Why do you think that was?
Because Trump is feeding, that propaganda to them that, if you elect Biden Harris, you're bringing socialism and communism. And that's something that Cubans are, paying attention and actually feeding into, because most Cubans that are in Miami and in Florida, fled Fidel Castro's um, dictatorship. But what really doesn't make sense is why you would support a president that is very soft against other dictators. And that's something that really, angers me from the Cuban community. And we're not saying the whole Cuban community,
Right. No.
not the whole Cuban
No.
community, but those certain Cubans that voted for Trump, how they are easily misinformed or easily tricked in getting his vote. And Trump's ads. You've seen them around. Their ads look misinformed and look like if you didn't know politics or you didn't know enough about the candidates that you would vote and believe in that. And I believe that the Cubans, believe that Biden and Harris are are a sign of socialism, and that their legislation that they would enact will bring socialism to the United States. And it's not only the Cubans, it's the Venezuelans too, that also took part of that, Florida win, you know. But that's what Trump did, and I heard on the news that that blueprint that um, Trump did to get the Latino vote and also the black vote might be the blueprint that Republicans will use in the future for elections, for presidential elections to come. So that's very scary and very nerve wracking that this guy has left a blueprint in the Republican Party to be followed for years to come.
No question about it. Like I said, Trump won't be the president. More likely, won't be the president in 2021. But he leaves behind a looming shadow. And I said this before you came on the program. He may not have won the battle, but he's winning the war in regards to just propaganda, like you said, propaganda. Lies upon lies. The fake news, the internet, the reality television. Like, he has got that down. The branding, he has got all that down to a T. And it's something that the Democrats are gonna have to deal with, or any other political party that goes up, that's created, that's gonna independence, that's gonna have to deal with moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, it's a scary sight, when somebody leaves their blueprint behind. More Trump who left his blueprint behind really, really badly on the Republican Party, because if a normal Republican or a moderate Republican wants to run for president, it's gonna be tough because if he faces a guy who has the same blueprint and same plan as Trump, we're going to see another situation of, that type of guy against, whoever the Democrats have. So it's scary times, but at the same time, I see that the future is going to be bright, and I feel like if people catch on that candidate who does the same thing as Trump, we're going to see a lot more people come to the polls and take this serious. Not like in 2016 when people didn't take it serious like they should have. But as we saw the numbers in 2020, and we'll see the same numbers in 2024 if there's a candidate like that again, or if Don Jr. runs or Trump runs again. So we'll see what happens. But I hope though. Here's one word of advice before I leave. For people that voted in 2020 and came out to the polls, please have the same energy for your local polls too. We spoke about this earlier. Local stuff are important as national stuff. Local stuff, the local side, they are in charge of public safety. They're in charge of, housing. They're in charge of so many other things, you know. So remember, don't make this the only election that you come out to. Keep making it a habit. Keep coming to each election. Keep getting educated on what candidate has the best interest in you locally. Because if we don't get the same turnout, then what was all this work to get Trump out of office? What was all this work to get Joe Biden into office? If you have somebody with the same ideas and the same interest of Trump running your local city. So please come out for the local elections in the next 2 years.
No question about it. I couldn't say
Mm-hmm.
it better myself. I know, man. Thanks for coming on short notice. I know you're a busy man, and I will look forward to speaking to you in the near future.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. All right.
All
Bye.
right, take it easy. Angel, Angel Henriquez, just a tremendous young man. And again, I'm biased because I've known him for a long time, but he's definitely someone who just knows what he's talking about. He knows, he understands. He wants to be a politician. He wants to do the right thing. Wants to help people out. And I have so much respect for that young man. And thank again, you know, he is he's a real one. And so thanks for having him. Great to have him on. Great to speak to him. And again, and like he said, pay attention to those local elections. It begins with local elections. It begins with even school board elections, like even down to that. So it's no question about that. Um, we're gonna shift gears. I promise you that we'll do all politics, but it is a historical election. You did have some football come on Sunday and Monday. Not no Tuesday games for once in the NFL Week 8. Interesting week for the NFL. I guess the big winner were the Pittsburgh Steelers. You see the Steelers take out Baltimore 28-24, despite the fact that Baltimore almost had nearly 200 yards of rushing on Pittsburgh. Baltimore had some spotty play calling in the fourth quarter. There was a point, especially on that last drive, they were killing Pittsburgh with that triple option. They were killing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh could not stop the triple option, and then they got down to within I believe that was at near the 10-yard line and scoring this right there near the end zone, and they run the kind of quarterback sneak with Lamar Jackson, who again, Lamar Jackson, one of the best athletes in the NFL, but Pittsburgh had that play read, had that play, dead to rights. So Pittsburgh was able to hang on 28-24, despite being down at one point in the game, 17-7. Listen, I know it's easy to bash Lamar Jackson. I heard somebody say that he's already hit a ceiling. I heard people say that he's the Giannis of the NFL, which actually is not that's actually not a bad comparison. Giannis and Lamar Jackson, as far as physically what they can do, and they've had to untap all their potential. But here's what you got to realize: Lamar Jackson can get better. He absolutely can get better. They need a running back to where the defense gives a heavy amount of attention to. Now, like they need a clear number one running back. I think myself, they count way too much on Lamar Jackson. I really do. I think that he gets is too. I think I look at how they're bringing him along versus say how Seattle brought along Russell Wilson. And again, they both had excellent defenses. Legion of Doom. Baltimore has been a top 5 defense since Jackson has been the starting quarterback. Marshawn Lynch. Now, are you going to get Marshawn Lynch is probably a borderline Hall of Fame running back. No, it'd be nice to have a Marshawn Lynch. More likely, you're not going to get a player of that magnitude. But you do need a legit number one running back that can take the pressure off Lamar Jackson. And it wouldn't hurt to have another receiver, a possession type receiver. We know Antonio Brown's cousin. His name eludes me right now. Listen, he's fast, he's quick, but they need another possession type receiver. They need more weapons around Lamar Jackson. That's basically what I'm trying to say. They really need more weapons around him. That's what this comes down to. But give Pittsburgh a lot of credit. Pittsburgh back-to-back wins against 2 top teams, Tennessee, and then at Baltimore. That is as good a stretch as you're gonna get. Pittsburgh probably is going to be number one in a lot of people's power rankings, which deservedly so at 7-0. And we'll see. We'll see. They are one of my teams that is without question a legit Super Bowl contender. Seattle taking out San Francisco, 37-27. But the big story in this game is the San Francisco 49er injuries. Garoppolo, and Kittle both probably going to be out for the season. They have a lot of questions in the offseason in regards to Garoppolo and his future with the team. I still don't believe in the Seattle defense. Seattle can score with anybody. We know Wilson's a legit MVP candidate, though he does not have nowhere near the stranglehold on that award as he once had, say, 2 weeks ago. I actually think Pat Mahomes would be my MVP right now, to be honest with you. But he's still going to, we still know Wilson's great. But listen, San Francisco has a ton of injuries. That deep, especially on the offensive end, their defense is not the same as it once was. So they will go into that Green Bay Thursday night game limping against the Packers. I don't believe in the Seattle defense at all. I don't think you can win a Super Bowl with that defense. As great as Russell Wilson is, if he's average, forget about if he's ever bad in the playoff game. But if he comes down to if he's average in a game, then Seattle's in major trouble. So I don't believe that they have a championship caliber defense that can win a Super Bowl right now. Now, can their defense improve over the course of the rest of the season? Sure. But right now, I don't trust that defense. We see New Orleans get by Chicago in overtime on the road, 26-23, give New Orleans a lot of credit. Drew Brees played well in this game. I thought Chicago played relatively well, too. They had a 13-3 lead. We know Chicago is not a real contender we know that their offense is not, their offense is not on par with their defense, which is a legit top 10 defense. But again, I actually was impressed with Chicago in this game. New Orleans just needs to get healthy. I think a healthy New Orleans team could be a Super Bowl contender, but right now they're not healthy. So I cannot put them on a list of teams that I think can win the Super Bowl. Great win for Cincinnati over Tennessee. Tennessee maybe is a case of 31-20. Maybe it's a case of Tennessee losing to Pittsburgh twice. So you wonder, that was such a physical game, such an emotional game. You wonder about the carryover, going from an undefeated Pittsburgh team to playing a team that came in with only one win. Now, Cincinnati Cincinnati has played much better than what their record indicates. They've been in a number of their games. They played a number of close games. They have their quarterback in Joe Burrow. I've been pleasantly surprised by how well Burrow has played. I was not that high on Burrow coming out of college, but he's definitely certainly he's without question, along with Justin Herbert from the Chargers, have definitely looked the par as two rookie quarterbacks. He's played extremely well, and again, if they can build, get some pieces around them, Cincinnati could be a factor in the future next year, not this year, but they could be a factor this year as far as spoiling a team that could spoil some other teams from making the playoffs or cost another team home field advantage, especially in that division. They play Pittsburgh and Baltimore at least once, one more time. So we'll see. Cincinnati is a very interesting team because they're going to play some contending teams come November and December. So they're going to cost somebody a playoff spot because that quarterback, he's played extremely well over the course of this season. And not gonna say bad loss. If you want to say bad loss of Tennessee, I guess you could, but Cincinnati is better. They were better than being a 1-5 team. I'll say that. Minnesota takes out Green Bay 28-22. The story of this game, besides Dalvin Cook, is how soft the Green Bay defense is. Green Bay is soft, period. I called this out last week when they when they got smacked by Tampa Bay. That was not an anomaly. They are a soft team defensively, and even the offensive line has gotten progressively worse over the past couple of weeks in regards to being able to protect Rodgers. Listen, I don't know what Green Bay is doing. Like, you have a quarterback who is playing at an MVP caliber level, and you go through the trade deadline and don't pick up anybody. It's clearly you need help on the defensive line. Forget about the offense. I think the offense will be fine. Could they use another receiver? Sure. But but to me, they needed to address their defense. Instead, they stand pat. And to me, I cannot take Green Bay serious as a Super Bowl contender with that soft defense. You can run on Green Bay. Their pass rush has been non-existent this year. Darius Smith and Preston Smith have came down a couple notches as it compares to 2019, not playing on the same level. So right now, Green Bay will make the playoffs, but right now, they are not a Super Bowl contender. I mean, that's all there is to it. Again, I don't see it. They have wasted Aaron Rodgers. Like, it really, like they in a real way, they've wasted Aaron Rodgers, who is an all-time great quarterback. They're going to be looking back 5 or 6 years from now and just shaking their heads at just wasting one of the all-time greats prime from basically 12 to 15 years of prime Aaron Rodgers and only getting one Super Bowl appearance out of it. Buffalo edges out New England 24-21. A late Cam Newton fumble kept New England from winning this game. Then you hear later over the course of the next day, or maybe it was Tuesday or Monday. Tuesday, Bill Belichick complaining about a depleted roster, complaining about the franchise selling out for the past four to try to win the past 4 or 5 Super Bowls and not having enough for 2020, which is complete bullshit, by the way. The Patriots have never been a big spending team. They've never been the type of team. They're not the Yankees here or the Red Sox. They're going to go out there and just blow up their salary cap and luxury tax. No, the Patriots have never been that type of team. So this ideal that the Patriots have gone out there and spent money hand over foot to win Super Bowls is again, a bunch of bullshit. And Belichick, and again, we're in a crazy year, 2020, when Bill Belichick starts complaining. And when Bill Belichick starts telling you about, discussing cap situation and that, I mean, Bill Belichick doesn't even talk like that. I mean, he gives you nothing during these press conferences, but he goes on Sirius XM, talks to Charlie Weiss, who, by the way, and Bill Belichick knew what he was doing. He's not, because if I was, a real journalist, a real talk show host would have called Belichick out on his bullshit and been like, "Hold on, coach, I'm looking at your salary cap over the last 5 years, or the last 10 years. You guys have not been big spenders. Matter of fact, you hadn't went over the cap 7 out of the previous 10 years. But again, he has his ex-offensive coordinator, Charlie Weiss, on there. Weiss is not a real journalist, not going to get asked any real questions. So Belichick, think he can bullshit Weiss and they can go back and forth about the old days or what have you. But again, Brady versus Belichick is no contest right now. Belichick is destroying. Brady's destroying Belichick. And Belichick is a Hall of Fame coach, all-time great coach. We know this. But Brady is winning that battle by hands down. Hands down, he's winning that battle. But again, I've never seen Belichick complain or even divulge that kind of information about the franchise. So Patriots fall to 2-5. Give Buffalo a lot of credit. They improved to 6-2. Miami is becoming one of the most pleasant stories of the NFL season. They are now 4-3, or maybe even 5-3. Let me check their record real quick. They take out the Rams 28-17. This was not about, of course, this was the debut of one Tua Tagovailoa. I'll figure out his name one day. Tua. I'll get his name right one day. Listen, 1 touchdown, 93 yards passing, 12 of 22. Nothing to write home about. But again, this is his first start of his entire NFL career. Let's slow down on trying to make a lot out of one start, one professional start. I like Tagovailoa if he can stay healthy. But the bigger story is the Miami team, which has bounced back from a slow start earlier this year. They are 4-3 and right in the thick of the AFC East race. Give Brian Flores a lot of credit that they won this game with their defense and special teams. They'll be right. They're going to be battling with Buffalo for that division. But again, don't get too wrapped up in the Tua debut. Is again his first game as a starting quarterback. Let's let him settle into the season before we make any snap judgments. So the NFL is talking. They're getting have to put plans in place, of course, for COVID and if games are postponed or missed. So there's been talk of a 16 team postseason if a couple things happen. Number one, if games are postponed to force a week 18, they'll play games in week 18. If those games are not played in week 18, if those games are not completed in week 18, then you're going to have a situation where you could have a 16-team postseason. So 2 things would have to happen. You would have to have the season would have to be extended to a week 18, and the second thing is a couple of those games would have to be postponed because of COVID and what have you. So just thought I would mention that. As far as Super Bowl contenders, tomorrow, of course, you'll have San Francisco and Green Bay, a game that has not been postponed as of yet, because despite the fact that Green Bay had a COVID breakout with the running back, and San Francisco earlier today closed down their facilities because of COVID. But as of right now, I haven't heard anything, and went on the air about at 6 o'clock. As of right now, the NFL, that game will be played. As of right now, Green Bay and San Francisco tomorrow on Thursday Night Football. So there you go with Week 8 in the NFL. As far as Super Bowl contenders, to me, there are 4 teams right now that I think can win the Super Bowl. We have Seattle, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, and Pittsburgh. Those are your 4 teams, I think, that are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Now, again, Baltimore is a possibility. New Orleans is a possibility. Anybody else in the AFC? Tennessee, maybe Tennessee could be a possibility. But right now, to me, those 4 teams are clearly the class of the NFL right now. Got a chance to watch the Dave Chappelle interview with David Letterman interviewed Dave Chappelle. So of course it's on Netflix. Part of David Letterman's interview series, which is back for season 3. And a couple of things jumped out. First of all, I strongly recommend watching it. Dave Chappelle, and again, it took me a long time to come around to this, but I'm all the way there. I mean, Dave Chappelle is no question to me the GOAT of comedians. And again, I'm a Richard Pryor fanatic. I love Richard Pryor, the late Richard Pryor. Thought Richard Pryor changed comedy the way that Marlon Brando changed acting. He had that type of impact on his genre. But Dave Chappelle, to me, has even taken that to another level. To see one legend, David Letterman, who is a late night talk show legend without question, be in complete awe of that guy, of another player, of Dave Chappelle I was taken back by that. And it almost, I'm gonna say Letterman, the interview wasn't great. It wasn't a great interview because I think, Letterman was cutting him off at times and he was just so awestruck that it was kind of like it was throwing him off. Now, it did not throw Dave Chappelle off. Dave Chappelle was Dave Chappelle. And I think where Dave Chappelle is at right now is he does not have to make you laugh to be effective. Dave Chappelle, as a straight communicator, is is a national treasure. Like he just as a communicator, like I don't he's at a level to where I don't care if he makes me laugh. It's almost a bonus if he makes me laugh. I just want to hear Dave Chappelle speak. I want to hear what are his thoughts on various topics or subjects about the world or in life in general. That is where Dave Chappelle is at right now, and that is a level of communication that is rare air. That you're talking, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Lenny Bruce, Dick Gregory. That is rare air for a comedian or any communicator for that matter. And it's kind of like, Dave Chappelle realizes that his purpose is bigger than comedy, but it just so happens that he just does comedy at a level. He's a comedy savant. And he's at that level right now. Like I said, the gap between Dave Chappelle and the second best comedian is probably as big as the gap between the second best comedian and the comedian ranked 55th or 100th. Like it's that big a gap. Like matter of fact, it doesn't even matter who's second. It doesn't. It doesn't matter who's the second best comedian. Like it's pointless. He's on that level right now. I definitely encourage to watch it. It was entertaining. He's back home, Yellow Springs, Ohio. A lot of nuggets, a lot of jewels out of that interview. Just the interaction between Letterman and Chappelle is worth watching. So I definitely recommend that. In regards to the NBA, a couple of things with the NBA. First, you're going to have the NBA voting on whether or not they're going to come back before Christmas or January 18th. Now, here are the NBA scenarios. Here are the restart options. So you see here, as I have it on the screen, if they start December 22nd, it would be 3 days. That's 3 days before Christmas. Training camps will be December 1st, and they will be and more importantly, they'll be eligible to get for in excess of $500 million to $1 billion worth of revenue. That is the big piece to that December 22nd start. Of course, we all know that is a much quicker turnaround. That is a very quick turnaround, basically a 7 to 8 week turnaround from when the NBA Finals ended October 11th. You've heard players balking at that, but more than likely they're going to sign this deal. Now that will be 72 game season. You have a 72 game season, 14 back-to-backs in the playoffs, as you see, will begin on May 22nd with the finals wrapping up around July 22nd. if they start the season January 18th, which is, I want to say, Martin Luther King's birthday, now you're talking about training camps starting around December 28th. That would be a 60-game season with 24 back-to-backs. Playoffs starting around June 28th and ending around August 21st through the 23rd. Now, putting the money aside, which I know is impossible to do. It's impossible to put the money aside. But let's go to a world of make-believe for a second. And let me put the money aside. Even minus the money, the December 22 option is a way more feasible option to me, just from the standpoint of playing 14 back-to-backs as a comparison to playing 24 back-to-backs. So to me, even without the money, if I'm a player, I'd rather start earlier and have more time off during the season than start later and have to do 10 more back-to-backs. And of course, in regards to when they start, they'll have a 6-day all-star break, a play-in tournament, and of course a 25% reduction in travel. Now, listen, the NBA, the players are going to sign this deal. They're going to sign this deal because there's too much money involved. And, if they're going to lose a lot of money based on the fact that they're not going to be any fans for the foreseeable future. Revenue in the NBA is going down. At least they're looking at 40% losses in terms of revenue, at least 40% with no fans. That's a nice chunk. That's a nice chunk of change. The NBA right now is looking at ways to generate what revenue. Talking about, sports gambling, talking about, not having to compete against the Olympics, television ratings. So they are looking to ways to scrounge up some money here. This tournament, this four-team tournament, in each conference with seedings, with seed 7 through 10, which is going to be a play-in tournament. They're looking for, television ratings and money revenue through that. So the NBA will start, and I told you this in the last podcast, and I'm going to double down on it, triple down on it. You will have an agreement before the end of the week, and they will be starting ring night in Los Angeles, December 22nd. You can mark my word, you can book it. Players are not walking away from that amount of money, and they're not going to walk away from a schedule that would provide them 10 less back-to-backs. It's just not going to happen. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. Thanks to Angel Enriquez joining me earlier in the podcast. I will see you this weekend with the Wire remix with Robert Sapp, season 3, episode 6, Homecoming. Big episode. As always, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/C/Real Deal Podcast. Have a great evening. Hey, turn off the election, put on a movie. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm out.